Welcome to Zach Reacts.
What's up, people of the Zach Reacts Live universe? I'm Zach, and this is Zach Reacts. A little bit late on the draw here. Been wanting to perfect my notes just right. Working on a couple of other formatting options as well. So I appreciate the patience here. Also, thanks to everyone for blowing up my first video. A lot of love, a lot of support, as always, much appreciated. This episode, we're going to talk about Impact Wrestling, the long-awaited Impact Wrestling Reacts. This episode was from Thursday, April 14th of 2022, taking place from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we kicked things off with a long video recap of the Josh Alexander and Moose feud, and Alexander destroying Madman Fulton's ankle during their match last week. We then go live to the ring where W. Morrissey is there as the crowd chants his name. He's getting a lot of love right out the gate. He says he's glad to be back in the 2300 because last time he was there, he had hit rock bottom. He gets emotional as he says he's back clean and in the best shape of his life. He thanks the fans for all their support, but then Brian Myers interrupts and says Morrissey pissed away a career that the boys in the back were jealous of, just for a good time. Myers calls Morrissey a menace for sabotaging his commentary career. Then Myers gets on the apron as he tells Morrissey that if he messes with him again, Morrissey will end up half dead on the arena floor for a second time. I gotta stop there and honestly just gotta say I'm assuming a line like that was pre-approved, if you will, by W. Morrissey in the back. And for those of you who are new to Impact Wrestling, W. Morrissey was formerly Big Cass in WWE, just to kind of draw familiarity there. Anywho, after that line, Morrissey straight charged at Myers, but Myers hopped off the apron and tried to escape through the crowd, but Morrissey caught him. Morrissey then drops him on the ring apron with a back suplex and takes out a table to finally put Myers through. A little bit of background, these two have been feuding for quite some time, for a few months. The gist of the storyline is Myers is kind of like that snarky, slimy heel. Morrissey's been trying to powerbomb him through a table, but something always happens. Whether Morrissey gets distracted by somebody else or Myers just flat out just escapes him. Morrissey keeps wrecking his commentary tables, wrecking his action figures and all that stuff. Anyway, Morrissey takes out a table to finally put Myers through, and he readies Myers for the BQE powerbomb, but Chelsea Green, of all people, breaks it up. As Morrissey is distracted by Chelsea, Matt Cardona comes out of nowhere and decks him with a digital media championship belt. Myers then kicks Morrissey in the face, and Cardona directs traffic, telling Myers to get Morrissey on the apron. When Morrissey's kind of stunned on the ring apron, Chelsea backhands him from inside the ring, which allows Cardona and Myers to double powerbomb Morrissey through the table. The trio then leave together as they laugh at Morrissey's fallen body. Pretty good first segment. Entertaining. They knew it was going to be a super emotional return for Morrissey being back in that particular arena. I won't go too into depth out of respect for the talent, but if anyone's interested, of course, there's such a thing called Google. You can research the whole kind of thing that happened. Crazy stuff for sure. So it was cool that he got the emotional moment. And then, of course, Myers, Cardona, and Green come out, and just they were getting a ton of heat. Cardona's a heat magnet. Cardona and Chelsea, I should say. They're heat magnets already. Myers aligning with them or being aligned with them just really amps up, his character, amps up the heat level, stuff like that for Myers. So interested to see where this goes. I know they do have a pay-per-view called Rebellion coming up soon. April 23rd to be exact. Actually, a week from tomorrow as I'm recording this. I'm going to guess that maybe Morrissey calls some backup in the form of Enzo. So after that, commentary runs down the Rebellion card as well as what we can expect tonight. We then get our first match of the evening, which is a champ challenge. Basically what this is so Deonna Purrazzo, one of the best in the whole industry. She's comparable to Britt Baker. She's also best friends with Chelsea Green. She's like a submission artist. And basically, what goes on with the challenge is with her being both the Ring of Honor Women's Champion and the AAA Reina de Reinas Champion, which is like AAA's Women's Champion. With her holding both of those belts, she basically holds an open challenge every week. Is what I'm getting at. Whoever answers the open challenge comes out, gets to pick what belt they want to fight for, and then they have a match. So this particular match, it was Deonna Purrazzo taking on Willow Nightingale, who I believe, I don't know too much about Willow. I think she was part of Ring of Honor before it went on its hiatus. She's been featured a lot more in AEW, on Dark, on Dynamite. So this was a pretty good match. Willow chose to go, of course, for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. Good back and forth match here. Purrazzo was able to retain the title in 7 minutes 57 seconds with a modified Virtuosa armbar, where she tweaked back both of the arms instead of one. After the match, we see highlights of the Nick Aldis and Mickie James versus Cardona and Green tag match from the Multiverse of Matches event back on WrestleMania weekend. And then we go backstage to where interviewer Gia Miller asks Mickie how it feels to finally have resolution with Chelsea Green, but Mickie cuts her off and says that they're just getting started. She says she was excited to wrestle Chelsea, but this isn't the way she intended it to happen at all. Mickie then makes fun of Cardona and Myers for playing with action figures, and Chelsea comes up from behind Mickie and says she doesn't need anyone to kick Mickey's ass. They start fighting, and then Cardona and Myers come up and hold Mickie back so Chelsea can crack her in the face. It looked like it was some kind of pipe. I didn't really get to see it. It happened really fast when she hit Mickie with the whatever it was. Fact of the matter is, she laid Mickie out with some help. So looks like that feud is definitely not over. After a commercial break, we go backstage again with Gia, but this time she's with Savannah Evans and Impact Women's World Champion Tasha Steelz. Gia asked Tasha if she's scared of Rosemary's mind games. Background, Tasha and Rosemary are going at it for the Impact Women's Championship at Rebellion. FYI. Tasha says she isn't scared of the Realm. She knows they play mind games, but she has a lot of history with Rosemary. Tasha then says after a year, she's at the top of the Knockouts Mountain and she will be ready for the mind games. The Decay then appear on the video screens, which the Decay now consists of Black Taurus, Crazy Steve, Rosemary, and Jessica Havoc. Rosemary says that they have a plate for two and it tastes of Tasha's Decay. They all then laugh maniacally as Tasha and Savannah look worried. I really like the Decay as a stable. At first, it was Rosemary, Abyss, and Crazy Steve, but of course Joseph Parks, aka Abyss, left to WWE to be a producer, where he's thriving. So they changed up the Decay. I really like the dark, kind of mysterious, creepy, mystical kind of stable they got going on there. They have the crazy parlor tricks, lights flickering, suddenly appearing on like video screens and stuff. So it's super cool. It looks like Rosemary and Tasha are going to have a good match at the pay-per-view. I don't think Tasha is in any danger of losing the title just yet, but with the mind games that Rosemary and the Decay like to play with their opponents, it's going to make for an interesting build, in my opinion. In our second contest of the night, we had Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham defeating Rocky Romero in 9 minutes 44 seconds with a modified crucifix roll-up. These two had a great match. They even showed honor at the beginning by shaking hands. It was a great back and forth contest. This was and a lot of people are going to be shocked with me being a quote wrestling savant, as my co-host, the Lord Lightskin, eloquently calls me. But this was my first time actually seeing Jonathan Gresham wrestle. I've heard so many good things about him, and I just never had the time to sit down and actually analyze one of his matches. I was super impressed, though. His reputation absolutely precedes him. He's like equal parts technically sound, but also kind of a high flyer is the vibe I got. He reminds me a lot of Bryan Danielson, to be honest. That's the closest comparison I can draw. You guys will just have to check him out. Great match here with two Ring of Honor veterans, indie veterans, if you will. Good match. I was really impressed with it. After the match, they shook each other's hands, and Rocky kind of hinted to Gresham that he's going to come for the ROH World Title at some point. So I'd be good with the rematch, honestly. We then go to a long video of the Alexander and Moose feud. I don't know why I can't say Moose today. I've been struggling with it all day, like doing my notes, talking with some relatives and friends about the show. For some reason, I'm struggling with it today. I don't know. It's just one of those days, I guess. So we had some sound bites from Josh Alexander cut in between the highlights. Basically, Josh said Moose made their feud personal by involving his family. Josh then said he needs to beat Moose and needs to be a world champion again. Basically, what had happened was, I believe this happened at the Multiverse of Matches show as well. Moose ran into the ring, and I'm going to call it a gore because it wasn't just a spear. Maybe it was the fact that Josh Alexander's wife sold it perfectly. I know she was a former wrestler, but I, for the life of me, cannot remember her name. So apologies there. But yeah, Moose gored Josh Alexander's wife. Before that, he brought their signed match contract directly to Josh Alexander's house where he talked to his little boy. Yeah, Moose's heel work is just certified grade A banger. Honestly, if you haven't heard of Moose, fantastic. He a former football player who just gets it as in terms of wrestling. Sorry to break off on a tangent, but that's just how it goes. I know Big Unk is a big fan of Moose. For those of you who came over from the IG Lives, Starving Poet, he loves Moose. This dude's just entertaining as hell. Honestly, is what it boils down to, really. So cool hype video to show a little personality in the feud, a little realism from Josh Alexander. We then go backstage to the locker room where Speedball Mike Bailey is hitting the boxing bag. Ace Austin comes up to him and says Madman Fulton isn't looking good right now with his broken ankle, and he likely won't be at Rebellion. Ace says it'll be just him and Mike at the pay-per-view, and Mike says it'll be Trey Miguel also. The three of them have a triple threat match for the X Division title at Rebellion. Ace says Mike knows what he means. Mike smiles in like a really sly way and tells Ace he knows exactly what he means and leaves. And Ace is just kind of standing there like all right, bro. So, pretty funny. In another really good match of the night, our third contest, Alex Shelley, accompanied by Chris Sabin of the Motor City Machine Guns, pinned Steve Maclin in 10 minutes and 4 seconds after his shell-shocked finisher. The thing with Impact Wrestling, formerly known as TNA Wrestling, for any of you who are familiar with the company, Motor City Machine Guns have been a mainstay basically since day one, all the way back in 2002. Since day one, they've put on banger after banger after banger. And so I went into watching the show, I knew Moose and Josh Alexander were main eventing Rebellion coming up. That's all I knew. I know of a lot of these guys and girls, but I didn't know any of the feuds really. I knew of another stable called Honor No More coming up. I knew Bullet Club was there. But yeah, other than that, so I went into this, did not know Alex Shelley and Steve Maclin were going at it, but got to check this one out. Maclin is more of like a powerhouse kind of brawler type. Alex Shelley, of course, is more like a high flyer, technical kind of submission type wrestler. The styles meshed. It was a beautiful disaster, honestly, is the best way to put it. Great match. The fact that it was only 10 minutes is crazy. The best matches, I feel like, fly by, and this is the best case of one of them. So at Rebellion, we have Chris Sabin versus Maclin versus Switchblade Jay White in a triple threat match due to some hijinks from, you guessed it, Multiverse of Matches. I keep almost saying Multiverse of Madness. For those of you who know, you know. Anywho, so during the Shelley-Maclin match, Maclin kept, when he had Shelley kind of down and like knocked out, he kept kind of like taunting Sabin, and so Shelley took advantage in the ring, hit him with a shell shock finisher, got the pinfall. 10 minutes, great match for sure. We then go to a replay from before the Impact, which was like their pre-show that I believe is online on YouTube, I think, of Madison Rayne beating Jessie McKay. So we have Madison Rayne and Tennille Dashwood They're the Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Their team's known as the Influence. Jessie McKay and Cassie Lee are known as the Inspiration, formerly the Iconics in WWE, for those of you who remember. So the Influence said after the match that they were done with Caleb with the K. Caleb then said he can find other girls, and then W. Morrissey came out and flattened Caleb with a BQE through a table that was already set up at ringside. So looks like stuff actually happens on their pre-show. Who knew? Who knew stuff happens on pre-shows? Crazy. Little WrestleMania joke. We then go backstage where we see Madison Rayne talking on the phone with Tennille Dashwood. Giselle Shaw walks up to Rayne and says she's sorry for Rayne losing Caleb. Rayne corrects her and says they fired Caleb, and also reminds Shaw that she pinned her at Multiversa matches. Rayne says that they're going to be just fine. Shaw tells her we'll see and leaves. Not sure what's happening there, but looks like we might be getting a match between those two very shortly. After a break, we then cut to another video between Josh Alexander and Moose, hyping up the rivalry, except this time we hear from Moose, where he says he has no conscience and has faced all obstacles put in front of him since he's been the Impact World Champion. We see him working out as he says he lets his actions do the talking. He says at Rebellion, we, along with Josh Alexander, will find out why he's the wrestling god. That's what I gotta say about that one. After a break, Honor No More are in the ring. Now, to break off on another tangent, just to make sure everyone here is on the same boat, everyone here is familiar with Impact. Honor No More is a stable of stars who came from Ring of Honor. And correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe it is Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis, Matt Taven. Those two are known as the Kingdom. We also have Vincent, who's formerly known as VSK. We have Kenny King, we have PCO, and then we have Eddie Edwards, who recently had turned heel to join Honor No More and turn his back on Impact Wrestling. Speaking of Eddie, he has the mic as they're in the ring and says he can feel the history in the arena because it's where ECW was born. Of course, this gets the crowd starting to chant for ECW. Eddie continues and says Philly birthed Ring of Honor. And he says some say Philly fans are the most passionate wrestling fans in the world, but Honor No More knows that the truth is they're the most fickle in all of wrestling. Eddie then starts to completely rip into the fans. Mike Bennett gets on the mic, tells the fans to shut up, and says that this building is his birthplace, where he made his ROH debut. He says the fans turn their backs on Ring of Honor, ECW, and on Honor No More. Matt Taven says they never turn their backs on each other, and they live by the fact that they're the best in the world. Taven says his fans never left, as he put ROH on his back despite each bad decision they made. He says Honor No More isn't a trend, and they're here to succeed. The Bullet Club then comes out to the stage, which consists of the Good Brothers, who are Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, Chris Bay, and Switchblade Jay White as the leader. Crowd goes crazy doing the too sweet whoop whoop chant. Too sweet, woo woo. That's how that goes. Jay White says there's a lot of talking going on, and it sounds like Honor No More think they're the best. White says that's not true because everybody knows Bullet Club is best. Gallows says people need to send out some Bullet Club thank yous, especially the Kingdom, since Gallows and got a little confused, sorry about that, since Gallows and Anderson handed them their asses in Japan back in 2015 and made them famous. Gallows then says Impact is Bullet Club's house. Carl Anderson jumps on the stick and says hi to Maria, as the crowd chants heavy for Maria, which they have some history in Ring of Honor also. All these Ring of Honor ties, it's crazy. Carl says Honor No More are the old toys nobody wants to play with anymore, and Bullet Club are the coolest toys in the toy box. He then says Bullet Club is simply just too sweet. Maria then jumps on the mic and says too sweet can go up her ass, and she's heard it a million times. She says Honor No More is for life. For those of you who know, you know. Chris Bay then says that they could sit here and go bar for bar, but asks if they want to just fight about it. Crowd chants for a fight as Bullet Club take their jackets off and make their way down to the ring. The brawl is on. Everybody fights at ringside. At one point, PCO, who's a bigger old guy, who's super athletic for no reason, PCO jumps on the top rope and hits the Deanimator, which is a huge swanton to take out everybody at ringside. JONAH, formerly Bronson Reed from NXT. Jonah's music hits, and he comes out for his rematch against PCO, which will be after the break. When we come back, we hear from commentary that Honor No More and the Bullet Club were cleared out. So it's just one-on-one Jonah versus PCO, and the bell rings for our main event. When these two wrestled for the first time back at Impact Wrestling Sacrifice pay-per-view, man, this was such a brutal, hard-hitting match. Like Jonah did a tombstone piledriver onto a set of steel steps to PCO. PCO kicked out of like everything. They beat the fire out of each other. That's exactly what they did in this match, in their rematch. Jonah defeated PCO in 12 minutes, 15 seconds with the tsunami off the top, which for those of you who don't know, tsunami is just a big splash. But Jonah gets some air and some distance on the tsunami. So, it looks super impressive. Great, brutal, violent match with these two once again. Really not much else to write home about. I recommend you go watch it. You watch two big hosses just beat the crap out of each other. Like, who doesn't love watching that on a Friday night? It's Easter weekend too, Let's just get violent, get crazy, just act all buck wild, act a fool. I'm just kidding. Don't do all that. Don't do all that on Easter weekend, y'all. For those of you who celebrate, if you want to watch a good wrestling match, watch Jonah against PCO. Is my point. After the match, PCO sat up moments after the bell, so Jonah hit him with some more shots to the head. PCO then starts shaking. It's kind of like hulking up, except the premise is that he's reanimating himself. So he just starts like violently convulsing. So he starts doing that as Jonah grabs a chair. The crowd's chanting for PCO as he sits up again, but Jonah hits him repeatedly with the chair. He hits him in the back, the stomach, the legs. Doesn't faze him. PCO starts to slowly come alive again. So then Jonah puts the chair on PCO's chest and comes off the top with another tsunami onto the chair. You can tell it took the wind out of Jonah because he takes some time getting back up, but he starts to laugh as he slowly leaves the ring. PCO is motionless as Jonah is finally happy with the fact that PCO stayed down. And that's how we end Impact. For my first time in months watching Impact, I was super impressed. It actually made me decide that I'm going to cover Impact Wrestling going forward. I will be ordering the Rebellion pay-per-view Saturday, April 23rd. You'll get my reaction from that. Really great show, top to bottom. I didn't find myself bored at all. The show flew by. So good stuff. Other than that, as far as Impact Wrestling goes, we'll hear more about that on the next episode next Thursday. I, again, cannot talk today. But thank you all for watching. This has been Zach Reacts. That makes this guy Zach. And in our next episode, we're going to talk the wildness that was AEW Rampage.